Hi folks, how are you? If you have an interest to apply for the Australian Work Permit Visa Subclass 482, this video is specifically designed for you. Today I have listed down 10 common mistakes people make without the proper knowledge, which will lead them to some kind of a refusal or a delay. If you are able to avoid this following 10 mistakes, I am sure you have a greater chance to get your visa very successfully. Let's start and find out what are those 10 mistakes. Mistake number 1. As you are aware, the skill assessment is a very important stage for your work permit visa. Doesn't matter whether you are a trade level or a professional level. The first mistake people make is to selecting the wrong trade, because you need to know very clearly what trade you belong to. Within the specialization, you maybe end up with doing something different than the trade requirement of Australia. Your home country may have called this a different name or a trade name or a trade level, but in Australia it differs. Say for an example, very classic example I can give you is in anywhere in the world, especially the carpenter, especially in India, the carpenters are who make these furnitures. But in Australia, the carpenters are the one who build the houses. The carpenters there is called as joiner. So this is the kind of mistakes people make. It involves on hospitality, it involves on engineering trade, it involves on even IT level of qualification. So you need to be very clear on the trade qualifications, what it is called. The selection of right trade is very important. Mistake number 2, selection of wrong level in assessment. Many times people get confused, apply to a position based on the designation what is being given on a work experience letter back home. But that may not be the same designation and the level Australia recognize you. For example, in hospitality, people get confused between a cook and a chef. In Australia, not everybody is a chef. Chef has a specific job description, and especially the level of knowledge and experience is very important. So make sure you select the right level to go through that process. Mistake number 3, the selection of wrong English examination. As you are aware, the 482 Australian subclass work permit visa, the English is a mandatory requirement. It's very important, you need to know what test to take. If you have a 5-year formal qualification in English of medium of instruction, you are waived. But if you don't have, the importance of having the examination is the key. What to take, because sometimes people take something like TOEFL, but it may be accepted for education. For a work permit visa, the most preferred ones are the IELTS and the PTE. Even in IELTS, the general is more than sufficient. So make sure you apply for the right examination so that you have a better chance to clear that easily. Mistake number 4, people apply for visa without scoring the required English. It's very important, you need to know what is the requirement for a 482 subclass visa. The requirement minimum is IELTS equivalent to 5 in overall and no band less than 4.5. Doesn't matter whether you take IELTS or PTE, but the equivalent IELTS is required is 5. And you can do general, but you can also apply to the visa without the IELTS. But at the time of decision, your file should have an eligible IELTS or the English requirement. So you have to make sure before it comes to that stage, you have to clear that exam. Mistake number 5, selection of wrong employer. This is where majority of the people who make mistakes. You need to know that the success of your visa not only belongs to your credibility and your file, but also equally that involves that your employer's credibility and the track record. In Australia, it's very common people buy business from another person and continue with the same name. And if they give you a sponsorship, if the previous owner of the business have any bad track record, the same name will affect your visa as well. That is why I always recommend people that who is your employer matters a lot on your success of your visa. Mistake number 6, application without the police clearance certificate. It's very important for Australia. The PCC is such an important documentation that you apply for your visa with the police clearance certificate. It not only requires the previous country of your work employment and origin, but also based on your employment history, you may need PCC from other countries you worked earlier. So please consult your professional advisors. Make sure you get the PCC before you file your visa application. Mistake number 7, not disclosing your previous travel history. It is very important for Australian visa that the Australian government wants to know the genuine declaration for all your travel history in the past. So it doesn't matter, even if you have any rejections, you still need to disclose on the full information because that is what they're looking for. Mistake number 8. Applicants disclosing non-verifiable employer details. This is including your reference letter, because the Australian Immigration Services might call your employer, your previous employer, to do a verification check. The experience letter or the reference letter you have produced, the numbers or the email is non-contactable. The Australian Immigration Services may try only a few times, but if they're not able to access that information, they have a right to take a decision based on whatever the information they have in hand. So it's very important you have that updated information on your contact so that you have a better chance to go through the visa successfully. Mistake number 9. Applicants not disclosing a full health history in the application. The Australian Immigration Services needs to know that what is your health history. Some cases they may ask you to take some medication and come back and reapply. But it is very important if you don't disclose the information, and when you go through a medical examination, if they find out, they may take a decision based on the information they have in hand. Even when you go for your medical examination, you need to reveal the complete health history to your medical examination doctor so that they can put a right recommendations. Please don't fear it may lead to rejection, but it may make a delay. They ask you to take some medication for a certain period and then reapply. Not completing the application in full. Many times the candidate don't fill the required information or the mandatory information in the application. The Immigration Services may ask for an additional form which is required for your process, but whatever the information you're given in the form is absolutely the final, and they may have a decision to be taken based on that. So make sure you take an expert advice before you lodge your application. I hope this 10 mistakes will give you an insight of how important the Australian 482 subclass visa process is. Because we at Baasu, we just not only focus on these 10 points. Beyond this, there's a lot of information and the insights which are required to make your visa successful. This starts from the skill assessment advice to the English, and then the advice for selection of the right employer. Also, that every information you are given in your application matches your exact track record on your employment. So I wish this video is of some help for your process, and I wish you all the success to get the 482 subclass visa at the earliest possible time, and wish you good luck in Australia.